conversations that need to be had. And I think they know that those conversations need to be had, but I think they're only willing to have those conversations because they recognize that you cannot bring to the table anymore an agenda that will affect the interests of the powerful. Like Bernie said, they were bought out by the same financial interests that we'd conventionally associate with them. And we're seeing it in the advocacy for war, that you can't talk about peace, you can't talk about diplomacy, that you have to vilify and reduce every narrative. That Zelensky's a hero and Putin's a monster. It's like, that's not the world that I live in.
Wait a second. Zelensky is a hero and Putin is a monster.
Well, the Panama Papers suggested that Zelensky, like a lot of Ukrainian politicians, has some interesting business dealings. And that he rejected the Minsk agreement. And there was a peace deal on the table, and the West lobbied Zelensky not to take that peace deal. So said the former Israeli Prime Minister.
Because his country got invaded illegally. I mean, you know, I don't know why you're...
Well, I would say, Bill, because of ever since the fall of the Berlin Wall, there's been encroachment on former Soviet territory, that there was a NATO-inspired coup in 2014, and that there are significant profits being made. It's the same in a sense. Look, I would offer this. I'd feel a lot more comfortable about...
Whose coup in 2014?
The 2014 coup in Ukraine that was backed by U.S. interests.
Why would we back a coup that gave Crimea to Putin? They lost Crimea in 2014, Ukraine.
The ongoing, I think, Bill, to say that this is a humanitarian war that has, as an inadvertent side effect, created all this opportunity for profiting for the military-industrial complex is as naive as suggesting that the pharmaceutical industry would keep good on their pledge to not profit from the pandemic. I'm not entering into the territory. Like, geopolitics is bloody complicated. Putin is clearly a former KGB, hardcore dictator-style politics. But I think that when we extract the American unipolar agenda, the idea that there can be a global hegemony, that America want to destabilize Russia. Like, I think if you don't include that in the conversation, that what you get is a limited conversation.
We don't want to destabilize Russia. We were hoping after the Berlin Wall fell, and then 2 years later, Russia, the Soviet Union fell. We were hoping Russia would become, one of the nations of the world that joined the family of Western democracies. There was no reason why they couldn't have democracy. They sort of gave it a go, but it was, obviously the past was so corrupted that the future was not going to be untainted either. And then we did make mistakes. I would agree with this, which you probably, I'm thinking in the direction you're going in. I don't think we should have kept rolling NATO. First of all, why NATO if there's no Soviet Union?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying we should have necessarily disbanded NATO, but instead of getting more, strong NATO, more countries, it should have been like, okay, we're saying that the Cold War is over, so why do we need an organization that's against you?
Yeah.
That was a terrible message to send, and I think that set things off. It may have gone to shit anyway. I mean, Russia is a tough place, and the people, have been brutalized by communism, which is horrible for the soul, not to mention the pocketbook. But, yeah, go ahead.
Bill, can I give you a bunch of facts? Because, then you can riff on them, because I'd love to see your take on these facts that come from our content on our show. Like, our research gleaned from some great journalists, and it's mostly okay to say this kind of meta-journalism. Right. We accumulate facts. We don't use anything that's not been endorsed in mainstream media. Let me hit you up with some of this stuff, and because I genuinely want to hear your take. But let me give you the whole thing as an overview, and then you can, as Bill Maher, because let's face it, no one else can do this.
Knock yourself out.
Okay, so former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said recently a Russia-Ukraine peace deal was blocked by Western powers. We know that Boris Johnson visited Ukraine and counseled Zelensky against taking the peace deal that's on the table. That's just one thing. Let me hit you with all this stuff. Zelensky has vowed to retake Crimea, but Russia said that's the red line that will spark nuclear war. We know that, all right? Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell said in December 2022, the most basic reasons for continuing to help Ukraine degrade and defeat the Russian invaders are cold, hard, practical American interests. And then I'll just widen this out a little. The Pentagon spent $14 trillion after 9/11. 55% of it went to for-profit defense contractors. The average American taxpayer contributed $2,000 to the military last year. More than 900 of that went to corporate military contractors.